All right, it is 3 o'clock. We will call the regularly scheduled Hutchinson Utilities Commission meeting to order. And any conflicts of interest on the commission to report?
None.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Anything in there anyone would like to pull out?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda and ratifying the payment of bills.
Second.
There's a motion by Matt, second by Troy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Go straight into the financial statements. Guess that's all you today, Jeremy, huh?
Yep, it is. So just kind of walk through just a few things. On the electric division side of things, and we tried to highlight some of the notes in there. Obviously 2024 September is down relative to last year. The big reason is we had finished up a project over on by SA over there. If any of you guys had driven that section, we had some of that was roped off for a while throughout the summer. We had some of our conductors running through the sewer system over there, so that was a project that we had budgeted for this year. That finally got completed here late this fall, and so we made that payment back to the city to reimburse them for that project. So that was $125,000. So if you take that piece out of what isn't typically an operational piece, we pretty much were right on with last year's September from the revenue, from a net income standpoint. We were up a little bit in usage for September, both on the electric side and gas side. We saw a little bit of uptick on some of the manufacturing side of things. So on the electric side, all of our customers are up a hair on that side. So things are trending fairly consistent to September with a little bit of usage. So year to date, we're just down just under 1.5%. So we've made up a little bit of ground through the first 3 quarters of the year. Obviously, like I mentioned last month, we probably won't hit the budget number. So as we get into the 2025 budget presentation, you'll see that I'm backing down those budgeted numbers from the last 2 years. We're just not trending to that level that we've had in the past. So I've kind of projected some of those with some different models. Otherwise, things are looking pretty good. The only other piece on the electric side was, our market purchases are up a little bit, $2 roughly over last year's market purchases per megawatt hour for September, although we purchased a little bit less, so there's a little bit increase on that side. And transmission was a little bit up as well because demand was up a little bit compared to last year. And then on the gas side, nothing really of significance. Again, we had some uptick on the industrial side, was our biggest kind of increase. Obviously, that was some of our largest customers kicking on some of their equipment, boiler systems. Obviously, take natural gas, so that's where we saw some uptick this year. That added some increased consumption on that side of things. Otherwise, the residential side was fairly flat, and we saw a little bit of uptick in the commercial side with some of the cooler weather we had in September. But nothing, I would say, of significance that really didn't trend where I had thought. And then the other piece on the gas side was we did have lower natural gas costs for the month, since a lot of our spot market gas has been cheap over the summer months. So we did provide back $1.19 credit per MCF to our customers. So that was just under $22,000 we sent back to our customers because we didn't need to collect all of what we have collected on the retail rate. And we've had year to date almost just over $179,000 in credits we've given back to the customers because we've been able to keep our natural gas costs down, mainly because of the spot market gas. We've got a lot of our contracted gas is hedged already, so we're usually in that 75% range. So that spot market gas has been anywhere from $1.40 up to $2, which is well below our hedge gas. And so the more volumes that we can buy off the spot market obviously keeps our overall gas costs down, and then obviously plays in giving credits back to the customers. So we are trending quite a bit above last year because the spot market prices have been a lot less. So that's been a good thing.
What are those trending now?
Yesterday, so we're at about $1.79 right now, $1.76, $1.79, $1.70 the last 3 days. We've been up into $2 a couple times, but mostly we're in the upper ones right now for a lot of that stuff. So it's still fairly cheap relative to our hedge gas, which is in that $4 range. So the more we can blend in that, just as on the electric side, the more we can blend in power off the market with our base load, the overall we can blend our overall costs down. So where we can do that, obviously if consumption goes higher, that we have more opportunity to blend that down with those types of costs. So that's been going good as expected. Nothing really on the investment side. I've just touched on in the past, obviously, what we have in investments, we've kind of moved more of that stuff towards the short end in anticipation of some of these project costs we have coming up and making sure that we're a little bit more liquid as far as what we're willing to use for reserves to pay for some of those project costs. And then really on the CapEx side of things, Mike will be talking about the voice over IP or the operating system for Unit 5 relative to our CapEx. We did budget $490,000 this year for that project. That project's going to cross years. We're going to ask you guys to approve the project today, but really a lot of the costs will incur in 2025. So that project will be bridging really 2 years, even though we budgeted for all of it this year. So there'll be kind of a timing on that you guys have seen on some of the different projects. And then, on the substation, should be close to $2 million worth of costs to date. By the end of this year, we're about 1.7, 1.8 that we've already incurred on the substation project. We will have some additional engineering fee costs coming in the last 3 months of the year, but I'm anticipating us being in that $2 million range as costs incurred to date on that project. So you can see those things on the CapEx. Otherwise, most of the other CapEx stuff has been trending, at least from what we've budgeted and what we've incurred, we've actually trended below what we've actually budgeted this year, even though we've incurred costs from previous CIPs that just had lag, whether it's vehicles or fleet, and so you can see some of the lag and timing on that. But overall, the CapEx is kind of where I had thought it had been through the first 9 months, and now obviously we'll start to slow down with construction seasons going to be coming to an end, and so we'll be getting kind of wrapping up a lot of our CapEx stuff as far as the construction side. So, any questions on any of the financials and investment information, CapEx, kind of where we're at? We did add cash balance this month of just over $600,000 for September, so that increased our cash balance just over $26 million and some change. So we're sitting in a good position yet going into next year's where we're going to have a lot of cash outlay with some of these projects under the financing piece. So.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions?
I make a motion to approve the financial statements.
Second.
All right, motion by Kathy and second by Anthony. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 on the agenda is the open forum. I don't see any guests here today. So into communication. Matt, city.
I don't really have anything for you guys today.
All right. Go to divisions. Dan? Dave?
If you recall, a couple of years ago, GRE approached us about possibly rebuilding that, it was called HN line that goes from Hutchinson out to Litchfield into Wilmer. Last week, we met with them. That project will be happening probably in the next 3 to 5 years. So they're in the kind of the design permitting phase right now. So just trying to give you a heads up that projects we own from Hutch Sub out to North High Drive. As part of that project, we'll be upgrading that as well. They're upgrading it to 115 from 69 kV. Mainly due to it's like their number one low capacity line that they own. It's time to upgrade it. It's the oldest line that's out there. It's time to upgrade it. So just giving a heads up that we've met with this city as well, and we're kind of going over the preliminary concept plans, and that'll be coming down the road here. So.
Okay. So just in its infancy, but looks like it's a go.
It's going to be a go, yeah. Don't have a timeline. It's definitely just in the planning, permitting process. But everything we're talking with them, it's in the next 3 to 5 years. We're kind of the end of it from Wilmer to here will be the last part of it, but it's kind of where we're at right now.
How many owners are there within that line?
I don't know. I know that us
For
and
sure,
Litchfield
four.
for sure, and Wilmer.
And GRE, for
Yeah,
sure,
so-
four stakeholders.
Well, timing seems to be kind of nice for us. We can finish one project before we get to the next.
Right. With the, oh, go ahead.
Hopefully.
I was know the timing was really good too with that project, the Hutch Sub, is that we could design that 115 line coming in, and so we won't have to reconfigure that substation again. So we've got that in our design now, so that when that time comes, we can swing that line over pretty easily
Okay.
with minimal effort. So it did play out really nicely
Good.
on that part of it. And then it will require us to do some work at our Plant 1 substation. Since that's only 69 kV substation, it'll be at 115, so we need a transformer, things like that. But hopefully early next year, we'll get some preliminary designs and cost estimates, because those costs won't be recoverable since it's a distribution. The transmission line that we own will be recoverable through the transmission rates, so we're gonna capture those, but the substation itself will have to be our cost. But in the long run, that line will set us up for decades. The capacity levels will go way up as far as the load we can serve in town. So the Hutch sub is one little step, and then the transmission line we'll put that up quite a ways. So that'll be a good step for Hutchinson, because they're trying to tie the 115 loops together. That'll help with reliability and capacity. So it'll be a good project for Hutchinson.
Okay.
And that'll help bolster this region too,
Mhm.
not just this kind of Midwest region in Minnesota.
Okay. Anything else, Dave?
No, that'd be.
All right, Mike?
Just kind of a moving target on Unit 1. It's never really a clear update from GE, other than our LBT is supposedly supposed to be done this Friday. We did start to get some of the tooling and stuff delivered this week, so that does look promising. So some stuff is on site for them to do the final phase of the project. So that's promising. At least we're starting to get some materials on site for them to do that final phase of the repair on the unit that is here. So I think we're getting closer to the completion of this never-ending project. So, but as far as the LPT, that target keeps kind of moving. I'm not sure why, but they did say that this Friday is supposedly it's supposed to be done. So hopefully.
Okay, so I'll write down Christmas.
I hope
Of what year?
25.
It's only getting colder out, and it's gonna be miserable to do the job once it gets colder. That's when we gotta do it. That's when we gotta do it. But-
So are they sending people up to do it, or?
Yeah, but I mean, we have to help too, but,
Okay.
yeah. So hopefully it's done before snow flies, but if it's not, then that's when we'll have to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm hopeful that it's soon. That would be nice.
But, yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Angie?
Jeremy and I are working on the meter crew chief position interviews tomorrow, actually. So we have 3 internal candidates that we're interviewing for that. And also, we will be having interviews next Wednesday and Thursday for the natural gas manager position. There will be 7 of us who interview and go through the process there, so that'll be good. I'm also finalizing the 2024 or 2025 benefits. So looking at health, dental, and the others with that. We pretty much have them set now. So there's just a couple of follow-up questions that I have on some dental quotes that we have out there. So, and then also just as a reminder, it's kind of getting to be that time of the year. In December, we'll be having Jeremy's review. In the past, we have had it at the December commission meeting. And it looks like, as you can tell down in the agenda, that we're gonna probably be moving that up. You guys will, approve that today if that is the consensus still. So not sure if you guys wanna have it that date or a different date, but I can also send out an email too, just to kind of get your guys' feel for it. But I just wanted to let you guys know about that, to think about that.
You want to think about it, or do you want to talk about it right now?
I'm good for the 17th.
Okay. Pardon?
Might as well just decide now if that's fine.
That is fine.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
17 or
18.
18
Yeah.
works for everyone? Karen?
Yep.
Works for you too?
Yep.
Does he need to be there?
Not necessarily.
I think he just has to decide if it's an open meeting or closed.
Angie, just
There you
curious,
go.
were there
That's what, yeah.
large increases at all in the benefits for 2025? Or?
No.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yep. Decrease.
Wow.
It wanted to be an increase. No.
Great.
Yep.
All right, so we'll plan for the 18th
Okay.
on that also.
Perfect.
Figure you give us a deadline, it doesn't matter when it is, we'll
Okay.
figure it out.
Yeah.
That's just fine. So normally I'll put it like on the agenda for next month so we can set it and approve it. But Mark, should we just add it as a new business item right now so we can vote on it right now, or wait till November?
It should be in the November's meeting.
Yep, perfect. I'll do that. Okay. But I'll make sure to have it on the agenda meeting.
Great.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Thank you.
have.
Okay. Mark?
Nothing today.
I think that's 10 meetings in a row.
Could be. Which is good news for you
Yeah,
guys.
absolutely. I was gonna say, when the attorney has a lot to say, it's usually not great for everything else. so.
I think he's like 260 in a row at the city council.
Keep a low
Kind
profile.
of beating up on you today, Mark.
Oh, Mark. What else is new?
Flip his name tag around.
All right, back to you, Jeremy.
Just that time of the year budget, so we'll be working on, kind of finalizing, working through budgets here the next few weeks, the capital projects, working through that piece, as Angie talked about, interviews. And then obviously we'll start working on getting you guys some CPI data and things for pay grids and things of that nature, kind of year-end stuff. So that'll be where I'm gonna be heavy in the next couple months. Just kind of finalizing that stuff and getting you guys presentation, budget materials, things of that nature, so. The other piece I wanted to mention back on the financial statement I forgot about was the ball field lighting is finalized now, so we just reimbursed the city for those costs, so that came in at $252,620, so below what we had budgeted, so it was a good project down there, and the ball field lights, if you haven't seen them, drive by, take a look, they look nice down there, so came in under budget, and we've got that wrapped up, so that was, again, the city appreciated the contribution from the utilities to help make that project go, and it was a good project down there, so that piece is wrapped up from our standpoint, so just wanted to mention that to you guys too, so you know.
Okay. All right. Item number 6, policy review. You see there's multiple ones there just for review. No changes?
Correct.
Okay. So it takes us to 7, unfinished business. We do not have any. So then we go to 8A, approved natural gas commodity agreement with Broughton. That's yours, Jeremy.
So we're kind of moving through a bunch of these things. So I should highlight on the board action form, I think Troy had caught that in there. So this first one is we're approving the commodities agreement. So I've got that up on the window on the agenda item, but if you look down at the board action form, it says transportation capacity agreement. That should say commodities agreement. It's the same contract. So just wanted to note that you guys are clear on that. But so essentially we've had 4 agreements put in place between us and Broughton, and then Broughton is really in agreement or in a contract with UNG and an interconnect station. So I was hoping to have all 4 of those contracts on the agenda for today, but was waiting on timing between UNG and Broughton on the interconnect agreement. We're basically a counterparty to just acknowledging that those two in agreement that Broughton can use UNG's interconnect agreement to transport gas through that interconnect station to our pipeline to Broughton. So that one will be on your November agenda. But the 3 main ones that we are in contract with Broughton are up for review by you guys and approval. So this first one is essentially the commodities agreement that we've had in place with Broughton since 2013, where we're providing them and supplying them their gas, and so we're charging them a transportation charge to transport across our pipeline, in addition to essentially purchasing their gas for them, and then marking up the commodities a piece to cover our administrative costs to administer and schedule the gas and those sorts of things. So nothing significantly changing in this agreement. Obviously, we're updating the time frames, so we're looking to have a consistent 5-year agreement on all 4 contracts. 3 of them are in here. 1 will be in November as we move forward. So the amendments that really have changed is we've updated the dates to be a 5-year agreement starting as of November 1st, 2024 to go through the 2029 calendar date as of 9 a.m. And I also have changed a few of the notification and discussion items. So moving forward, when we get into year 5, Brown just has to notify us within 3 months if they want to discontinue us purchasing their gas for them and transporting it across our pipeline. Of course, I've had conversations with the city, and there isn't really ever any intention to do that since they don't have the staffing or capability to purchase their own gas. So I don't see that happening. But if there is that wanting to do that, they just need to give us a 3-month notification versus a year, because their volumes aren't significant. That creates a huge issue for us to modify our scheduling for them. And then really, if there's any real future operational changes, that they give us a 6-month notification if something significantly is changing down there. That would change not only the scheduling of our commodities, but then also any type of transportation issue that we would have as far as any excess capacity that we may or may not have on the pipeline in future years. If we decide to come across other customers that are taking up some capacity, we got to make sure that any significant changes, not only by them, but Heartland Corn and New Ulm, anyone that's in our pipeline, that if things dramatically change, we need to be notified of those things at an appropriate time so that we can manage the capacity side and volume of the pipeline. So those are really the things that are changing. On that, I did try to quantify really what that means on an annual basis in all three of these contracts. So on the commodity side of things, for just scheduling their gas and billing them for that, we make about $4,000 to $5,000 annually on the gas and transportation. So as you can see, they're not high volume community, but it's a good partnership that we have with them. And we also do a portion of their billing. We take their reads down there. We provide them a data file that they do their billing with because they don't have the financial wherewithal to provide their own software systems and do those type of things. So we do that as a service to them as well for a minimal fee on that side. So for the commodities agreement, I'm just asking the commission to approve a new 5-year agreement with them, keeping the rates the same. I think those rates are fine for the amount of time that we spend scheduling the commodities for them, so I didn't think there needed to be a real significant change on that. The other caveat I will say that has been in place that we haven't really enforced has been that every year we're supposed to be adjusting the commodity transportation rate by the CPI, and we haven't done that in the past, but my intention is to do that every November 1st. We will be adjusting that 54-cent transportation commodities piece off by the CPI. And so I've let them know that that's just the cost of doing business, and we're fine with that. So I do anticipate enforcing that every November 1st.
So it's in the contract.
It has been in the contract, and it's still in the contract. So we will apply that moving forward.
Okay. Any questions for Jeremy?
Nope.
Make a motion to approve the commodity agreement with the city of Brown.
I'll second.
Yeah, motion by Anthony and second by Matt to approve the natural gas commodity agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So right into the transportation capacity agreement.
Yep, so this is, again, a 5-year renewal allowing them to transport. The first one was actually the gas side of things. This is the extra transportation and allowing them to flow their volumes on ours. So this is the one where you're going to see that CPI inflation adjustment on the transportation charge for that. Again, the same type of changes, notification, give us 3 months versus a year, and then any major future operational changes, give us a 6-month notification, and sit down and have conversations. So this one equates to about $12,000 to $13,000 on annually in transportation revenue we're getting on their volumes.
Okay. Any questions on this piece?
Make a motion to approve firm transportation capacity agreement with the city of Broughton.
Second.
All right, motion by Troy and second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The third piece of this puzzle, Jeremy?
And the last piece is having the board approve entering into a new operating agreement with them. Again, same thing, 5-year term. We want to keep all these on the same schedule so it's easy to administer and manage. Again, through the end of 2029, a couple things we are changing. We are increasing the routine charges. So we typically had been charging $22.50 for routine, just operation maintenance, leak inspections, leak detection, things of that nature. And that hasn't changed since 2013. So I am increasing that to $2,500 a month. Obviously doesn't cover really the cost of our increases over that time, but we need to start moving the needle a little bit and covering a little bit more of our costs when we're down there to do that. So I have ticked that up. I've also ticked up the operator labor rate schedule to be consistent with our other agreements. Our billable hour right now is around $63 an hour with salary and benefits. So we need to make sure all of our contracts are reflective of what it costs for our guys to come down and operate and maintain your system. So I am ticking that up. And then on the non-routine work where we're actually going and physically repairing a lot of their system, changing out equipment, updating regulators, things of that nature. In most of our other agreements, if you've noticed, we're adding, they're paying for their costs of adding equipment and adding improvements to their system. But what we've had in the old contract was that their cost plus 10%. We are now adding, instead of 10%, we're going to 15%, which is consistent with Heartland Corn and consistent with some of the newer agreements that we put in place. I think we have one that we just approved in February or March that's still at the 10% for Fairfax. When that one comes around, we'll add a 15% margin on that. And again, most of these things aren't covering all of our costs, but it's moving us towards covering more of our cost of service for those guys. And so Broughton was fine with those things. And that will equate to around $30,000 annually to cover our operating costs and maintenance down there. And then anything above where they're maintaining the system, we're billing for time and materials and cost associated with that. So, and that will fluctuate depending on what they need done in their system. Some years there isn't a lot that needs to be done. In some years, we may put $30,000 to $40,000 worth of cost and materials and labor in to rebuild some of their system there. So just that one kind of ebbs and flows. But the operating agreement will be a consistent $30,000 annual revenue stream that's been in our budgets. So.
Okay. That's good. Any questions for Jeremy?
I'll make a motion to approve the natural gas operating agreement with Broughton.
I'll second.
Motion by Matt, second by Troy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So in the fourth contract, is the plan to marry the 5-year date to November?
Yep, so I just got that back from UNG last week. He said he apologized, was kind of hung about their attorney's office. So he got that back to me. I sent it down to Brown. They're going to approve it at their November 12th city council meeting, so it'll have both signatures on, and then it'll come to you guys in November just to be kind of witness to that interconnection agreement has to be in place for us to provide them these services, at least 2 of the contracts. So you'll see that in November.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have approval of the contract for the Hutchinson substation control enclosure. That's Dan's.
Yeah, follow up from last month's meeting where we entered into the contract, awarded the contract to Electrical Power Products, EP2, I guess, for the control enclosure and relay panels. We'd like to formally enter into a purchase agreement for that equipment. And Angie has the contracts and asked you to sign if approved.
Okay. So nothing new, essentially. This is just actually entering the contract.
The next step.
Exactly.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for the Hutchinson substation control enclosure and relay panels to EP2.
I'll second.
Motion by Anthony and second by Matt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we have the requisition 10057 Hutchinson substation 115 kV rebuild amendment 2.
Over the last year and a half, as you know, DGR Engineering has been doing the engineering design, the contract administration for all the materials for the Hutchinson sub project. And the scope of the project's changed a little bit. Things have been modified over the last year and a half, and so they're requesting additional money to cover that extra time they've had to put in for those tasks. And so they're looking for $128,000 above their original estimate, which was, like I said, a year and a half ago, was originally brought to us. The 3 major drivers were the transformer. They worked a little extra with the transformer manufacturer to make sure it was built to our spec. The second was the transmission line, the Wilmer line coming in. Things that had been moved around a little bit, so that added a little extra time. And then the third item was the stormwater. A year and a half ago, they put their estimate out on their man hours it would take, and then once they dig into it, they see obstacles here and there, and it just costs a little extra time to work around those.
And from our perspective, we think it's reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah.
DGR has always done well by us, from what I can tell.
They do good work.
Okay, any other questions?
I make a motion to approve the requisition number 10057 Hutchinson substation 150 kV rebuild amendment 2.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Kathy and second by Troy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8F, award contract for the control system upgrade on the Wartsila unit number 5. Mike.
Yep, so October 1st, we had a bid opening. We received 2 bids, one from Wartsila, one from MSHS. After we reviewed both bids, Hutchinson Utilities and IEM Energy Consultants, who helped us with the RFB. We both agreed that, we both recommend that Wardzilla made the most sense to go with their proposal for a contract price of $513,000. So I guess I'm just asking for you guys to approve awarding the contract to Wardzilla for the control system upgrade for Unit 5.
Okay.
Wardzilla.
The bids were quite different.
Yeah, so so that is because Wardzilla is has a lot of proprietary stuff on it. For MSHS to do it, they would have to remove a lot of the Wardzilla components to put non-proprietary stuff on it to make their stuff work with the Wardzilla machine. So like what Jeremy was saying, we'll have to do a down payment. So some of the stuff we had budgeted for this year, it's like $200 and some thousand, Jeremy and I figured, right, would come out of the CapEx for this year. And then roughly $300 and some thousand would be left on next year's CapEx. That's kind of how we roughly figured.
And lead time on that project?
It's like 25-week build total.
Looks like we budgeted 490.
Correct, so it's a hair above what we had estimated.
How old's the system we're replacing?
2012 is from when the unit was put in. It's
Okay.
Windows XP. And it was computer based, and now it's going to go to server based. That's both systems. Both bids were server based systems.
I don't think there's many systems still running off XP, so.
Correct.
We've been buying our time for a while.
So Shakopee's plant, Shakopee, Minnesota's Wardzilla plant went with the Wardzilla upgrade, and they're very happy with it. So I spoke to Joel or whatever, and he has no issues with it. So it worked well for him.
It's
So.
always nice to hear from somebody else that's already done it.
Mhm.
Any questions for Mike?
Nope. Make a motion to award the contract for the control system upgrade Wardzilla Unit 5.
Second.
Motion by Troy and second by Matt. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have discussion on the level of carbon-free renewable power supply mix. I think that's yours, Jeremy.
Sure is. Hopefully you guys had a little bit of time to digest some of this stuff. And we've talked a little bit about it in the past couple of months. But I was able to go back through and run some different scenarios for you guys to take a look at. I do need to provide the form back to MRES by November 15th, so if I can get some direction from the board today, that will help me fill that out and get it back, because I need to make sure that they're procuring enough renewable energy credits so that they can fulfill their members' obligations for 2025. So I sent you some of this information ahead of time, hopefully gave you a little bit of context to kind of where things are at. Under the old guidelines, which is up through 2024, right now we have roughly $96,000 in the budget for this year, 2024, and under the old guidelines that we were considered 100% carbon neutral. With the new guidelines and how the PUC and the state has interpreted the new 2040 carbon-free standards, the biggest change that's happened is all the market purchases that we were purchasing under the old guidelines were considered carbon-free sources because we weren't the ones that owned the assets that delivered the energy to the market. We were the ones just buying it. So from that standpoint, they were considered carbon-free. Under the new standard, that is not acceptable anymore. So the new standards, what we believe will happen, and this hasn't been confirmed, so the caveat will be it hasn't been fully approved by the state and the PUC, but the guidelines and directions they have given us is we believe that you guys will be able to use the northern region of MISO to come up with the percentage of market purchases coming off that are carbon-free. So in 2023, the northern region had 55% of the energy purchased out of the northern region in MISO was considered carbon-free sources. So we're under the intention that we're going to be able to use that 55% as the carbon-free standard on any market purchases coming out of the northern region for the Minnesota membership, because that's where we're at. So under the new guidelines, I gave you an option number 2. If we kept the budget as is, we're gonna go from 100% carbon-free or carbon neutral to 69% now. So that means if we wanna stay at where we've been the last 2 years, we would need to buy essentially more renewable energy credits to meet that 100% carbon neutral standard. So how I've laid this out is just to give you guys some different options, some different things to think about. Option number 1 is if we just want to meet the renewable standard, which is 25% renewable for next year, we can certainly do that and just meet the regulatory obligations. And MRS will buy those RECs on our behalf and say, yep, we're in compliance. We don't need to go above that for next year. If we did that, option number 1, it would cost us $68,000 to buy 25% of the RECs to make that. So the piece to keep in mind is under the new guidelines, in order to essentially be carbon-free or renewable, you have to physically retire a REC. That's a change as well. So any RECs that we're buying or any carbon-free sources, there has to be a REC that has been retired and can be reported to the state in order for it to essentially be a renewable portion of your portfolio.
When
so
you say retired, what does that mean?
They have to, so MRS uses a system called MRETs that tracks all the renewable credits, those attributes in a system. So if we own generation, we can either, so let me preface back, there's 2 pieces on any type of renewable generation. The physical energy, so essentially, let's say a solar array, and you have a megawatt solar array. You have the physical energy of 1 megawatt, and you have an attribute that you can sell. So there are 2 different products coming off of that 1 megawatt of energy.
It's like our generation capacity.
Correct. You can choose, if you're the generation owner, to keep both of those, keep the energy and the attribute, or you can break those apart and sell one or the other. The software system that they use is called an MRET system. That records all the RECs that are being sold into the market or into the system, and it also records who's purchasing those RECs. Because you can't duplicate RECs, so if we retire 1 REC and it's going to have like a serial number on it, you can't double dip. You can't use it more than once. So now you have to physically show, for us as an example, if we're going to meet the 25% renewable standard, we have to show that we've retired enough RECs in the MRET system and report to the state that substantiates the 25% standard. Now, MRS has been reporting on our behalf the last couple years as part of the Pride Energy Choices program, those retired RECs on our behalf. So nothing significantly changes from what their own generation is. It's if they're procuring more power off the market now, or they're doing things that aren't their own generation, we have to procure through the MRET system those actual REC certificates so that we can show that they've been retired in addition to their own generation that may have those attributes. So that's the key of the guideline, is you have to retire those now. You can't, if you get RECs and you're not retiring them, you can't claim it as meeting your renewable standard. So you have to physically show the retirement of that.
And that's an annual event.
And that's an annual event, right? So with a lot of the members that have WAPA allocation, there is no incentive to bank RECs any longer than 4 to 5 years, because there's also a sunset provision in the state with RECs. So after 5 years, you can no longer retire a REC. So some of the members in MRES that have WAPA, there's really no value to them keeping them in a bank right now, because WAPA won't allow them to remarket those RECs. Assuming that, let's say they have excess RECs that they don't need to meet standards for 1 year, they can sell those, but WAPA won't allow them to do that. So MRS's response, the members that have WAPA allocation, is there's no monetary value to keeping RECs because you can't resell them, so you might as well retire those RECs first to meet your obligations or whatever your standard is you want to have for your community, and then supplement that with either additional generation that you own or purchasing RECs through MRES. And I believe the MRES board, that's what's being proposed at the MRES board, so I believe at their November meeting, they were going to approve making sure that members retire that WAPA RECs first before supplementing those RECs with MRES generation RECs or market purchases. course, that doesn't pertain to us because we don't have WAPA allocation. We're the only member in this region that doesn't have WAPA allocation with them. So in essence, for us, in order to meet regulatory compliance or to become 100% carbon free or renewable, we actually have to purchase more RECs because we don't get the WAPA allocation as part of that WAPA arrangement or contract. So we're basically, essentially, for all practical purposes, whatever standard we want to meet, we're going to be buying RECs for the most part to meet those obligations. MRS is moving that direction of adding more renewable generation sources, but that takes time to build that out over years. You know, they've added in a couple solar arrays with some battery storage that qualifies. But any large generation, they're really looking at natural gas and dispatchable generation up in this region, not necessarily larger scale renewables at this point. Now, nuclear might come down the road and some other components, but that technology just isn't cost effective. So really for us, it's going to really be about procuring RECs through the Bright Energy Choices program to meet whatever standard the commission feels they would like to be. So under option 1 right now, so under all the options, we're considered 34% carbon free right now without purchasing any RECs. And that's through MRS's power supply mix that they have for their membership. So to add on to that, we for sure have to meet the regulatory requirement, which is option 1. We have to meet the 25% renewable energy standard. So option 1 really isn't a decision, it's we have to meet the regulatory obligation. So, but I wanted to put that in there for you.
And that's required for 25.
Correct, that's
2025.
required for 25. And on the one sheet, it kind of shows you the different phases of that coming in, if you guys had a chance to look at that. So we'll have to meet those obligations. So through 2025, we have to meet 25% renewable energy standards. Through 2030, we have to meet 25%. And then it jumps up right now to 55% in 2035 and 2040. And then the carbon-free standards also jump up as well in those pieces as well. So we're already in compliance with the carbon-free because there is no mandate for 2025 on the carbon-free side of things. But on the what they call the EEET, which is the renewables, we have to meet the 25%. So we're going to need to meet that for the next foreseeable future, the next 5 years for sure, unless they change things at the legislature. So that's kind of where we're at. So we've got the carbon-free of 34% for next year. That obviously will change in the following year because they use the previous year's data to figure out what their power supply mix. So that carbon-free will always change based on what MRS's power supply mix is that they're providing their membership. With the renewable energy credits, then there's some decisions that need to be made by the board as far as how far along does the board want to be as far as not only being at regulatory compliance, but also providing and telling your story about how far does the utility want to move down the path of providing carbon-free or being carbon-free within the community or offsetting some of our natural gas generation or coal generation in our power supply mix with RECs to make us more carbon neutral. So then that really becomes a philosophical decision by each board at each utility as far as what type of story they want to tell. So I did lay out some different ideas, different things for you guys to consider. For 2025, the RECs are still $1 a megawatt hour, so that hasn't changed. They've got enough supply in the at least for next year and potentially in the 2026 to keep them at $1. But obviously, we've talked about as demand goes up for RECs based on changes in laws that could influence the pricing of RECs. Currently, in the membership, Minnesota's the one that has the standards right now. South Dakota and North Dakota have voluntarily said if you guys want to volunteer to do things, we're not going to mandate it, but if you want to, great. And Iowa has something similar to that as well. So, but the members in Minnesota, there's a regulatory standard. So if we just meet the regulatory standard, which is option 1, we're going to add $68,000 and some change to the budget. If we want to keep the current budget that's in there for 2025, that would put us at 69% carbon neutral. Option 3 would be if we want to bump up and be 79% carbon neutral, we would have to buy 45% of our kilowatt hours with RECs. That would jump us up to $122,000. Option 4 is a little bit higher. And if we want to consider ourselves 100% carbon neutral or carbon offset to any carbon that has been part of our power supply mix, we would need to buy 66% of our megawatt hours in RECs, and that equates to roughly 179,000 megawatt hours of RECs we have to buy, and that would jump us up to just under $180,000 in cost to tell our story of being 100% carbon neutral or carbon offset. And of course, you can play with different options in between those, but I wanted to give you just a general sense of what the dollar value is and the budget impact. A couple other things to keep in mind. I do not have that budgeted in the power supply expense item right now. I've got that done except for this piece to give you an idea of what we're talking about in relation to our power supply. I've got $12.5 million roughly in the power supply line item right now. So these costs are a small percentage of that overall power supply mix. So it's not a sizable dollar value, but it is something that is important, you know, for the board to consider about where they want to be. So I just keep that in mind as far as the percentage of the overall power supply expense. It's not a significant dollar value as much as maybe it's more of a good feel-good thing or a thing of being able to tell our story of where we want to be in the industry and where we're looking to move. And then the second item that you guys need to consider is over the last couple of years, we have not included that expense in the power cost adjustment mechanism. So we've pulled that expense out and have said, you know, we'll budget that as an operating cost. It won't be a part of that calculation. But that's another conversation point that you guys need to have is at what point do you want to have that just be a normal cost of our power supply and where the industry's going, and that should be a part of our power cost adjustment, so that if there are times when we have expensive power, and this would be a part of that, we'd be recovering some of that through the power cost adjustment. So those are really two decision points that are really a board decision that you guys need to kind of wrestle with.
So far, we've made the expense, but we've insulated the ratepayer from
Correct.
what that actually does.
Yes.
And going forward, it's just gonna get more expensive, right? If you want clean power, then it's gonna cost something. And it's gonna be a normal part of business, if that's what we wanna do, so.
I think in our state, the regulatory environment is continuing to make it part of that.
Yeah.
I agree with it or disagree with it. I think that's the reality of it, and it's likely not to go away.
Correct. The other piece of caveat, just for some context, that will probably be brought forward at the legislature this year, because we're already hearing rumblings of it through our legislative meetings, is there's a battle between interpretation of what carbon-free standard means. So on the one side, you've got people saying, well, if we're going by 2040 being carbon-free, that means no generation that emits carbon should be part of the carbon-free standard. So essentially, no more coal, no more natural gas generation in the state. They consider that carbon-free. Whereas the current rule language says carbon-free means you can offset carbon production with renewable generation or RECs. So there will be bills coming forward on both sides that are going to try to persuade the lawmakers to look at it differently. So that's just something we're obviously need to keep an eye on. It's a huge talking point for all utilities, not just municipals, but investor-owned utilities. If they pass a law where it becomes carbon-free, then you significantly have to change your generation mix to do that. But there will be bills coming forward. They're already starting to percolate through there. So that's just something we need to keep in mind as well. Obviously, we're going to do it.
Where does nuclear fall into these two columns?
Nuclear is carbon-free as well. So there's a sheet back here that kind of talks of, I must have taken that out. So that's considered carbon-free standard. They haven't considered it renewable because there's a byproduct to it. But that's also being talked about as well. So it's a carbon-free source, which is part of this carbon-free 34% that we have. Part of that is nuclear from MRES. But there's debate on whether nuclear should be considered carbon-free and renewable. And right now they're saying it's not a renewable source because it has a byproduct and it's not coming from a natural source. Of course, there's people on
If you want
both
to get
ends.
picky, I mean,
Right.
solar and wind both have byproducts too, and whatever you're using to generate the power is no longer useful.
Correct. So there has been talk about clarifying what bucket.
I mean, I think you gotta be pretty clear here, right? They're moving the goalposts, so what we thought we were carbon-free in 2024, we could do the exact same thing, we're no longer carbon-free. So I guess the question for the commission is, how much do we wanna spend on it? Where do we wanna come in here? And whoever wants to start, feel free.
If we, as far as everything's moving, like you said, the goalposts are moving, is there any advantage to buying these or spending the money now when it could change? I mean, if we spend that $180,000 and then things change next year thereafter, isn't that just kind of lost?
So I should preface, this will be an annual thing that will come to the board every year. So this is only particular for 2025. Next year, I'll need to come and have the same conversation.
Price might be $1, it might
It could be
more than
$2, it could be $3. The percentage of carbon-free relative to RECs will change too, the volumes. So this is an annual thing.
Just
That,
okay.
yep, this isn't a set in stone forever. This is just for 2025's budget.
So we're not
Next year,
locking the
same thing.
future commissions
Correct.
into any decision.
Right. This is a year by year. And that's the only way that MRS can procure and make sure that they're buying enough RECs to meet the membership's obligations, because some states, they don't really want, some of them aren't looking to buy RECs because they don't need to meet any regulatory obligation, and they're not really looking to move the needle as far as carbon-free renewable. So there's a lot less drive in some of the states than there is in Minnesota, whereas similar in Minnesota maybe are one way. So
I think, and correct me or add to it if I'm missing something, the benefit has been for some of our larger customers that we have, Uponor, 3M, there's a corporate benefit that they see to having more carbon free. Now they can choose to buy it on their own. I think Uponor says they're gonna do that no matter what. And it may have, which is kind of a soft thing to say, a recruitment tool for people to choose Hutchinson over other locations if that's in their corporate strategy. So
correct. And I will tell you, a couple of the big companies have, as part of their overall corporate structure, those types of goals. Our bigger customers do. Uponor in particular, and why that's important, that's why I have that window box in there, is whatever the board decides to do as far as buying enough RECs, I would say, to meet a renewable percentage. We're doing that we have been doing that for the entire community, all of our customers. For Uponor in particular, then they buy above and beyond that. They pay for the rest themselves to be 100% renewable. They're the only customer in town that wants to be 100% renewable. So they get billed for that incremental increased cost to be renewable, because that's just the philosophy of their corporation to do that. Whereas our other customers are fine with the percentage that the board has approved to make them either carbon free or carbon neutral or renewable, because some of the other corporations have other facilities that will meet their corporate goals in other locations around the country or around the globe. So we've got the one for sure that's, no matter what we decide to do for everyone, they're gonna stay with the 100% renewable standard.
do you have a recommended level for the commission?
I don't. It's really a decision for you guys on really where you wanna be.
So, I mean, I have a thought. I mean, we've gone through a couple of citizen surveys,
I was thinking the same thing, yeah.
and I think the theme has always been, hey, we'd like to be, as long as it doesn't cost us anything. You know, and when I think about that, and as a ratepayer too, I mean, this stuff is changing annually. It changes based on who's in power. You know, I would be in favor of the bare minimum based on what we've heard from the ratepayers in the past, at least the last two reports.
I don't have any heartburn with any of these options. I don't even have heartburn with option number 5, because I think the fact that the ratepayer has said, I'd like to be as much as possible, as long as it don't, I agree,
Yeah.
as long as you don't have to pay for it. But if we spread $180,000 across all the kilowatt hours that we sell, it's almost nothing. I mean, it's 180,000, but without being able to drill down on the ratepayers, on the citizen surveys results, which generally was overwhelmingly, yeah, I think we'd like to do that. How much do you want to pay? Well, nothing. But if we said, would you pay 1/10 of a penny to do that? Or 10 pennies to do that? So we didn't quantify what nothing means to them.
You're right.
Nothing means nothing unless it means 10 cents.
Right.
Or very minimal. We didn't have the drill down question. And as I thought about that and think about overall the kilowatt hours we have, I don't get turned off by any of these options. 1 through 5.
Oh, and really, I think we're doing the 68,000 to comply.
Correct.
So it's just the additional 84,000.
Above what we have
Right.
budgeted now. Right.
Correct.
So it becomes even less.
Yeah.
Is there any financial advantage to doing that? Is there any, like when you talk about Uponor, places that want to be 100%?
It could be a marketing thing. I think it's about what potential
Attracting.
financial advantage could attract somebody that's looking for somebody that hitches their wagon to that. I think.
And it-
is what you-
Right, certainly for Uponor, the more RECs, the higher percentage of RECs you're willing to buy to meet a renewable standard, the less cost it's gonna be for them, because they don't have to buy as many RECs to be 100% compliant, 100% renewable. So there would be a financial
Well, and our long-term hope
piece for them.
with Uponor is that they expand operations, increasing what they purchase from HUC, bring jobs in, expand, right? That's
Right.
the whole manufacturing sector. I think that's the long-term hope. You can't guarantee it.
Certainly with the 3M as an example, the more things you add to the portfolio because we provide them information, the better that looks from their local site here as well with corporate of, hey, Hutchinson Utilities is X amount of carbon-free sources and carbon-free offsets, and that just strengthens their mission of where they're looking to go globally.
So what is the quick math on the kilowatt hours, like the cost per, if you go number 5, is there, I know you're right, it's not much at all.
No, it's a tenth, per kilowatt hour, it's a tenth of a penny per kilowatt hour. And if you put it into the PCA, the preface of that is there's always never a guarantee that it's gonna be recoverable, it just depends on the overall power supply for that month. Now, with some certainty, I can tell you the highest months, which is driven by our wholesale rate, are gonna be summer months and winter months. So there's always a better likelihood that we will be collecting some power cost adjustment that would recover a fraction of this cost, but I don't think we're gonna recover all of that through a PCA, because in the shoulder, I should preface that, at least with the current rates from the wholesale supplier now. But you will see that their rates are going up every year. And so there might be a point where that benchmark of $54 a megawatt 3 or 4 years from now we may be collecting it every year or every month. So there's not always a guarantee that you're going to recover all of this cost through that. It just depends on the overall additional transmission cost that we have for the month and what our demand is in town and things of that nature too. So
I think the frustrating thing for me is that our actual power doesn't change. Right? What we're actually delivering to anyone in the community doesn't actually change.
Feels a bit like window dressing.
Yeah, it's just whatever St. Paul's dictating is where we have to head, but we do have to comply. So
Yeah.
we know 1 is a given. We have to at least do that. So yes, it
I
really
think
comes down to what we're able to do.
once you go to option 5, you have to be willing to
exactly.
stay on option 5 regardless of cost. And if the cost per unit goes up substantially, that number's gonna grow pretty quick.
Mhm.
So it doesn't look bad today, but
Well, and then we have to. If you don't want to stay there, you have to be willing to take the heat to come back down.
right.
If that's where you go. What do you think, Kathy?
I agree that we don't want to be too overly aggressive, and because like you said, we can't go backwards. And so the bare minimum is fine. I don't know if it makes sense to go with option number 2, just because that's what we budgeted for 2024, and then we're 69% total carbon. I guess those are the 2 I'm kind of looking at.
Is this something we need to vote on at a future meeting, or?
We need an
Well,
answer.
they
to
need-
that.
I need direction today.
Yeah, because they won't.
Whichever direction we go, I think it's time just to include it in our costs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's not something we can't get away from at this point. So we can choose to go up or down, but I would like to see it included in the cost going forward.
I got there in a hurry too. I would agree with that. And that it's going to be a bigger piece of the pie probably moving forward.
Right. Yeah, if any of the surrounding states move the direction that Minnesota has, which is probably unlikely, it's going to make this more expensive. Because right now we're lucky, right? We're the only state that has the mandate in place where we've got to buy these. So.
Lucky, huh? I'm not sure that's the word I use,
Well.
but
I think you know what I mean. I guess then we look for somebody to make a motion and we can vote if there's somebody that has a comfort level. We're kind of all over the board I,
Your thoughts, Troy?
yeah.
It's hard. I like the point that if we go to 100%, then really can't come back.
No, you can.
You can, but
It's an annual
Yeah.
choice.
Right.
It's just, you have to be willing to take the heat if
It doesn't look.
there's anyone out there that is going to
If anybody's paying attention.
bring it up with you.
I think that on
As
the
a
financial part, if you go to 100%, we have places like Open or different businesses that we may attract or may come in. And then looking at it, that 84,000 is a small price to pay for that.
I agree that in the overall scheme of things, that the dollar amount isn't a lot. But if you drill it down, it's also a job, it's a position, you know, the money could be spent and allocated other
Right.
ways. So, I mean, you look at it one way and it's not a lot of money, you look at it on the other side of the coin and it is. It is a good amount of money, so it's,
Hard part is none of them are wrong. You know, they all work.
yeah, they all,
Right.
Let's split the middle. I'll make a motion to go option 3.
and included in the
Included in
calculations.
power supply cost. Jeremy, is that how you want to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a motion for HUC option number 3.
Second?
Okay, a motion by Anthony and second by Troy. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Motion carries. Good discussion. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you guys for that.
Next on the agenda, we have item 8H. Approve setting a special budget workshop meeting at 2 PM on November 27th, so that would be an hour before our normally scheduled meeting.
I can take that one.
Okay.
So just based on the commissioner feedback, the consensus was just to have a budget workshop the hour prior. So if you guys still all agree with that, if you could make a motion.
Everybody's schedule still works?
Yep.
Okay, entertain a motion to set that budget workshop for 2 PM on November 27th.
I'll make a motion to approve that for the 27th at 2 PM.
A second.
Motion by Troy, second by Matt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, last item on the agenda is to reschedule the December 25th regular commission meeting to December 18th to avoid the Christmas holiday.
Yes, and I'll take that one as well. Again, just based on the consensus from the commission, we'd like to move that meeting up 1 week prior.
Which I believe is our historical plan to avoid the Christmas week, people traveling and such.
I'll make a motion to approve rescheduling the December 25th, 2024 regular commission meeting to December 18th, 2024.
One second.
Motion by Anthony and second by Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Which I do believe is scheduled to be your last meeting, correct? So, yeah, the end of an era there. On that same line, Gary, Mayor Gary has kind of set forth Tom Lambert's name as a potential replacement or new commissioner when Anthony exits. So I've talked to Tom earlier this week. So if any other commissioners would like to reach out and chat with him,
I've talked to him as well.
Is he the insurance guy?
yes,
Yeah.
Windorf
Okay.
Insurance. So he did say that you
Yep.
talked, so.
We've talked a couple times.
But he does have a high level of interest. He's filled out the form and of course talked to Gary.
Yeah, Gary, I talked to Gary about it, but.
Yeah, so it was a good conversation. So anybody else would like to reach out and talk to him, feel free. He's definitely open to that. I know he'd like to talk to you, Jeremy. so,
Yep, I'll give him a call here.
And I think he might be at our next meeting, the way it sounded,
Yeah.
Yes, yep. Don and I
Trying
had
to get
talked
him-
about trying to get him
just
here.
to have
Prep
us set in
before.
an extra meeting,
So,
or extra 2 meetings probably.
yeah. And I think he'd have to be approved by the commission or the council in December.
Right.
So,
Usually there's a recommendation that comes from this board.
so if anybody would like to talk to Tom before the next meeting, and then we can formally give that recommendation in November. for the
Yeah,
council
because you
in
guys will
December.
want it for the city, one of the city council meetings in
We
December.
have, our last council meeting is December 19th, it's that Thursday.
Okay.
Whatever that Thursday is before.
Does he have to go to 2 meetings, or does it
It's
just one?
It's just
It's just one.
function.
But you have your first Tuesday.
First Tuesday is regular.
Is still regular,
Yeah,
okay.
and our second one will be like that third Thursday.
Okay. So, yeah, well,
So if we can make the
we approve it in
recommendation after our
November, they'll
November
have
meeting.
plenty of time to put it on their agenda.
Okay. All right. I believe that concludes the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
I got 2 more meetings.